Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on another of my In the Footsteps of the author Walter Wilkinson. He was an author, but principally a puppeteer. Born in 1889, I think I got it wrong in the last episode, died in 1970 and toured around the country with a Punch and Judy show, and I also believe some marionettes as well. Principally a puppet show, well, hand puppets with a booth. This is part 3 and I'm picking up from where I left off in the last episode. I'll leave the links so that you can find them. And I'm down here by the Way and Arun Canal, which I think he passed over, although it was probably abandoned back in the late 20s when he was perambulating with his barrow. So he may not have noticed this on his journey between Wisborough Green and Pulborough. So I'm going to go back and cross over that bridge and reconstruct, or at least follow in some of his footsteps, to see some of the sights that he would have seen. You'll have to excuse any wind, if it is, buffering against my microphone. It's a lot windier today as I come up on this journey than it was on the previous time. If I had hair, you'd hear it, or see it rather, bashing about all over the place. So I'm crossing the bridge here. This is the starting point, and I'm making my way south towards Pulborough. This is, I think, it's a conjecture that he took this journey. We know that he didn't like main roads. He hated motor cars. His philosophy was to get out and be in the country as much as possible and absorb the sounds and the sights. And that's partly what this series is aiming to do, is to reconstruct that. So I'm going up and approaching what is called Lee Farm, now private houses and a peppering of them. But I imagine 100 years ago, they would have been a working farm. It's suddenly got quite windy, so I do apologise. If it is, I've tried to muffle up the microphone as best I can. So this area here I've come up to is Lee Place Farm, and the footpath sort of circumnavigates round, but the lane goes right through the farm, and I would imagine 100 years ago he probably did walk past all the farm buildings, but I can't do that because it's private, so I have to go up round this way, which I shall do. People often get a bit tetchy when I film their houses because they often wonder what the hell I'm up to. And hello, there's a dog there. Sorry. Morning. How are you? Yeah, good, thank you. Just out doing a filming walk. Nice to see. Thank you. That gentleman there was perfectly fine though. So I'm circumnavigating. Now I'm filming in autumn. The colours are just spectacular at the moment, as they are in autumn, as you can imagine, passing these wonderful houses here with their vernacular, Sussex vernacular hanging tiles and chimneys and all of the stuff that you imagine that Walter would have seen as he passed by. But he wouldn't have seen these magnificent colours because, as I mentioned in the previous one, he was going in May, June time, and we're in autumn obviously. Right, I'm going to carry on round. I'm leaving the farms now, but there are a few more of these farm cottages and farm houses peppered along this road. And this road that I'm following now takes me eventually down to Stane Street, or the A23, which is the A29, I beg your pardon, the A29, which is the Bognor to London road. And the Stane Street bit is a stretch that went down from Chichester, originally a Roman road, that was from Chichester to London, and it went across Berry Hill and then goes in a very straight patch for about 5 or 6 miles, passing through Pulborough, which is obviously our destination. Just passing some rather smashing little swampy areas, I suppose you might call them, with willows at the edges, which do look rather fantastic. Actually, if I just pan around here, maybe get a glimpse of some of the wonderful willows. As the wind starts to increase again. What I love about Walter is that he proudly calls himself a vagabond. It's a term that I suppose we would think of a bit old-fashioned in many ways these days, but he is very proud of it. It's a derogatory phrase about somebody, but he takes up that mantle, and he very much likes to live the country bumpkin's life, talking to the road menders that he finds on the roadside and the other itinerant travellers that he comes across. And then the fact that he asks, and I like this particularly, he asks people if he can erect his tent and his camp. He's a noisy van, of which he would have been absolutely annoyed at breaking the silence back in the 1920s, when there was fewer vehicles on the roads, and they would have come like gas guzzling monsters out of nowhere. But it is that very much that thing that he would ask people to put up his camp, and often they would find a little spot in an old orchard or a place at the back of their farm, that he couldn't just put it up anywhere, as a lot of people who do a bit of wild camping do these days often go in, don't tell anybody. I don't like the notion of not telling anybody that you're camping on their property. So I have full admiration for Walter for seeking permission first, and often getting rejected. Now, I've actually parked, I haven't walked all the way up from Pulborough. I actually parked here and walked up to the bridge there over the Way and Arun Canal, because the next part of the journey down this way behind me is just pretty much this lane for about, well, at least 1.5 miles before we get down to Stane Street. So I'm going to drive that bit and see if I can find somewhere to park. Stane Street itself is incredibly noisy. It's the main A29, as I said, and it's a very major road. So probably won't be able to get much filming there until I get into Pulborough itself. But we'll see how we do. So I've parked up just actually ahead of me, and I'm now on the A29, the busy London road, but it's not actually very busy at the moment. I've chosen a moment where I get a little bit of grace, and I'm actually walking on, if I step out here, you might just see a very, very narrow lane. So I'm going to try and get to the top of this bit. The actual turning that Walter may have come by was just that way a little bit. I couldn't park down there, so I've parked up at the top of Codmore Hill. Codmore Hill is sort of, it's a sort of borough, northern borough of Pulborough. This is a long, long stretch I don't know how much it is. It's probably nearly 2 miles until you get to the river, which is the River Arun, down at the bottom. And he crosses that and then goes into Hardham Church. Some of the sights that he may well have seen is it's now the SFO India or something, which I guess is a curry house. And then up next to me here, the old forge, apparently, and Hill House, and then this, which, according to the top, was Codmore Hill Post Office. And then here we've got the Wheelwright's Forge, which we can just see behind me. So I imagine he would have seen some of all of this as he pushed his barrow up this hill and then carried on this long stretch, which he describes as being very stretched out in the book. I'm going to carry on now and make my way down towards the river on the other side of the southern part of Pulborough. And so here am I now down at the two roundabouts at the sort of heart of Pulborough. If you drive through it, you'll know these two roundabouts incredibly well. East and west, you have Pulborough strung out, and also north and south, but north from these roundabouts. Anyway, lovely timber frame building over there on my right. So Walter would have come down this way. Presumably, he really doesn't mention too much about this, but it's the bridges that I think are interesting. There's two bridges today. There's the old bridge, which I think dates from the 18th century and has been rebuilt at I think built in actually in the 17th century and then rebuilt in the 18th century, something like that. If I do find out, I'll bung it on the screen, the actual dates. But the new bridge, it looks like that was widened to take the traffic off the other bridge, the older bridge, in about 1936, I think it is. So there's lovely tea rooms here, the Riverside tea rooms just next to me, which is rather wonderful. Now, before I go across the bridge, I just want to take you down so we get to have a little look at the side of the bridge, because when you walk across the old bridge, you don't much see it. And then also a bit of the River Arun at the same time. And it's just down here. And it's a magnificent, beautiful old bridge. There's a number of these bridges. And in fact, later on in our reconstruction, we'll find ourselves at Stopham Bridge. And I've been there a few times. Okay, let's actually walk across the bridge. So the newer road bridge wouldn't have been there in the late 20s. About 10 years later, after he'd come this way, the new bridge would have been constructed. And it's a lovely bridge now. You can't go across it in your vehicle, obviously, anymore, which is just as well. But you get a good view of the span of the newer bridge, which is just on the right-hand side if you're heading south. I suppose I should say on the west. And then you'll get the main bridge going this way, and I love it. I love this bridge. What he does mention is the wide fields and the plains, really, which we have to the east of the bridge. It's a floodplain. It does flood quite a lot here, and he referenced Chantonbury Ring many times in his walk as a landmark. And of course, Chantonbury is very clear, sort of south east direction. Well, that's the end of this particular video on the journey. He carries on towards Watersfield and goes past Hardham Church, in which he goes in with the utility and has a look at the murals on the walls. What's interesting is he would have gone probably over Hardham Bridge. Hardham Bridge is a bridge for boats which helps the Wey and Arun Canal join up. So it would have gone over another part of the canal system, which I find quite amusing. We've got, I think these are Canada geese in this field here next to me. So that's lovely to hear them chirping away. I don't know whether you can hear them with the microphone. But anyway, that's it for this time. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. Do support what I do. If you can spare a bit of cash, then it really helps me get out and about and continue these sort of videos. If you've enjoyed it, thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.